Hello and welcome, folks, to week 13 of Battle of the Shorts. Forgive me if I'm a little bit more quiet and reserved tonight. A little bit more sad, maybe, perhaps. I just finished the book The Road today, and I just got done watching the movie. So, double dose of a very sad book. And as a dad who is missing his son right now, I'm going to do my best to talk about these short stories and be happy. That's why I brought along our special guest this week, which is Baby Otter. He doesn't have a fun name. It's just my son's favorite little stuffy. So Baby Otter is going to join us this week. He's going to sit up here and watch as I talk about these short stories. Battle of the Shorts, week 13. We got some big names this week. We got some awesome stories. And we are officially over halfway through the reading of all these short stories. So we have done, I believe after this week, we'll have done, if it's 4 per week, what's 4 times 13? 52? Sounds right. Anyway, I think 52 is, I don't know how that adds up. Whatever. This week we have, I'm going to go to my bracket here, 2 heavyweight hitters in Kurt Vonnegut Jr. versus Ray Bradbury. And then to start off our second row here, we have C.M. Kornbluth versus A. Merritt here. 4 very well-known authors in this space, especially Kurt Vonnegut and Ray Bradbury, both huge names in the I guess just vintage fiction space, but specifically sci-fi and fantasy. Those 2 are well recognized, and those 2 are the first that we're going to talk about. Kurt Vonnegut Jr.'s, we're going to start with his short story Harrison Bergeron in Welcome to the Monkey House here, a short story collection that I have. And then he is going up against Ray Bradbury's There Will Come Soft Rains in the Martian Chronicles here. So let's get right into it. First off, as I said, we had Kurt Vonnegut's Harrison Bergeron, which came out in 1961. And it follows kind of a family, 2 parents who are watching television, and they essentially see their son being, it's like a news broadcast of their son, Harrison, being arrested. I'm going to kind of refer to my notes a little bit here, but it kind of hits on these notes of being different, being smart, and being unique. And Harrison Bergeron is the character in this. He is the son who is ultimately like the one who exemplifies the right word. He ultimately takes on the personification of that uniqueness, the human spirit of being unique. And while his parents are just they're just dumb. And Vonnegut, in his classic fashion, is so witty, humorous, and fun. I love that kind of writing when it's done well and it's not done kind of ham-fistedly into, it just doesn't work in some ways. And with Vonnegut, at least every time I've read him, it always has worked. I've heard that his later work is not quite as this, it doesn't hit the same as this earlier work. And I mean, yeah, he just has this way about him that is so refreshing. And I'll get to my thoughts on Bradbury as well, but him and Bradbury both have this quality that's just rare, especially in the science fiction genre and fantasy, even fantasy genre, where there's a humanness about their wonder and creativity, because they create these larger than life circumstances usually, and they're discussing quite extraordinary stories and characters, and yet they have this soft, human emotion about their prose that is just beautiful. And yeah, specifically Harrison Bergeron is more funny than it is soft. I'm more referring to the softness and emotional side for the Ray Bradbury story, but for the Harrison Bergeron story, I just love Vonnegut. I can't help but really fall in love with his way of writing. But just go read it. It's a pretty short story. It's not. It won't take up too much of your time. Probably be pretty easy, relatively easy to find. And Vonnegut gets an 8 out of 10 for me. It was, surprisingly dark, but I guess I've always been fascinated by that concept of how comedy and tragedy are kind of equally, intertwined in that way. I love comedy, and I also love tragedy. I love when you really can get to the heart of an issue, the heart of a story, and I think Vonnegut does that better than most. So 8 out of 10, Harrison Bergeron for Kurt Vonnegut. Moving on to Ray Bradbury's story, There Will Come Soft Rains. I have to make a caveat here. This is one of the kind of interlinked short stories or vignettes or whatever you want to call them within the Martian Chronicles. So I think to do this story justice, perhaps I should read the whole thing. Those of you that have read this will probably tell me that's correct, and I probably will at some point. I love Ray Bradbury. I've read, I think, only Fahrenheit 451 and Dandelion Wine by him. So I need to really get more into into some of his other famous works, namely this one. But something really funny that happened with this story, and an occurrence that I don't think will ever happen again. I'm going to flip to the story really quick. I opened this story up, and I hand to God, Scout's honor. I had no idea. I didn't pick this story for this week on purpose or any reason, but I opened this story up, and as you'll see here, I hope it's zoomed in correctly on the date, but as you'll see in the book, if you go find it too, it should say it, August 2026, which is this month currently, and it says, a couple paragraphs down, today is August 4th, 2026, said a second voice from the kitchen ceiling in the city of Allendale, California. It was August 4th, 2026 when I was reading this story, and this story was published in 1950. What in the world are the odds, the randomness of the universe that would have me pick this story up on August 4th, 2026 without any clue in the world? I swear to you, I had no clue that date was in this story, and I just thought, how bizarre are those odds? So, in just this in just this random chance that happened, and that really put a smile on my face, because just like Bradbury's prose, there's this certain right place, right time about it, maybe, is a good way to describe Bradbury's prose and his way of telling a story, because it just feels, every time you read him, you feel warm. You feel like something's right. You feel like, I don't know, it takes you to some nostalgic place within you. And I'm not sure what the term is. I know there's a term out there for being nostalgic for a place you've never been to or not personally familiar with. That is Ray Bradbury's prose to me, at least, because I haven't been to Allendale, California, in the future, technically, by this, on Mars. But there's this nostalgic way that he tells these stories, just dripping in human emotion and warmth, and I love it. It's not a particularly plot or character-driven story. It's just kind of a snapshot in time. There's been a couple of, maybe one or two other short stories within Battle of the Shorts that have had that kind of, that have taken that route of storytelling, and it's hard to pull off because you run the risk of it not being interesting or losing any kind of interest or tension, because there's really not any. But Bradbury tells this story of an empty home that is has an sort of a smart home system, for lack of a better way of saying it, I guess, in our modern day terms, and it's it's like making the eggs, and it's doing all of the things that a house would do to get ready for the day for the family that lives there, but the family is not there. And it's just this snapshot in time that is just, it's such an interesting and unique perspective. Bradbury is just wonderful. He's just a warm cup of coffee every time. I gave this one a 7 with the caveat, kind of with an asterisk, that like I need to read this full story, this full book, because I know there's plenty more in here that will really captivate me and make me feel that warmth again. But a standalone, it was very short. It was, I think, 6 pages or something, and so it just didn't it didn't contain enough for me to really feel a certain way about it. Now, that being said, Ursula Le Guin's the ones who walk away from Omelas is the only 10 out of 10 within Battle of the Shorts so far, and we're halfway through, and that was really short too. But this didn't quite get me in that same way, but it still gets a 7 out of 10 for me. It's really wonderful. Ray Bradbury is a treat, and I love reading him. So with that, our first matchup, I hope I didn't ramble too long. I hope I haven't made you too sad. I probably don't sound good. My voice is probably a little shot too, because I was crying the whole movie I watched up the road. But Harrison Bergeron of Kurt Vonnegut's Harrison Bergeron gets an 8 and takes the win over Ray Bradbury's There Will Come Soft Rains that gets a 7. Both are wonderful, and you should read both. We're going to put Vonnegut's name down, and then we'll keep going with our next 2 shorts, which are by, as I said earlier, C.M. Kornbluth with The Little Black Bag, and A. Merritt. I think it's the Women in the Wood. Let me just make sure. Yep, The Woman of the Wood. I think it's the Woman or the Women. Anyway, C.M. Kornbluth, we're going to go over his first. I have these 2 best of C.M. Kornbluths here. They are, I believe, the same contents, but this one, as you can see, is absolutely falling apart. Charged me $3 for this book, and I physically can't really read it. I think the cover is a couple reads away from being completely torn apart, and as you can see, the spine is just it's eviscerated. So lucky for me, I am an avid collector, and I have this really nice hardcover copy that has what I believe is a way better cover, the best of C.M. Kornbluth, and in there, book club edition, I have The Little Black Bag, which was nearly 30 pages, a little bit longer than the 2 previous stories. And I should note, I think C.M. Kornbluth is probably the author I have read the most short stories of, because early on in this BookTube channel, I read The Explorers, which was a collection of short stories, probably a dozen or so of his, and I was blown away. When I was just getting into my sci-fi journey, right about that time, I remember I was just kind of reading whatever I could find, get my hands on, and I had done a couple of book hauls and had just grabbed whatever Kornbluth I could, and so that became one of my favorite short story collections ever. It was wonderful, and so I was familiar with his prose, his stylings, his just kind of edge, kind of secret edge. He's very underrated, very forward thinking, and way ahead of his time, honestly. And I would recommend that if you have any C.M. Kornbluth, you read it, because it rarely misses. He rarely misses. And this story does not miss at all. We have kind of this doctor who is kind of a shady doctor, and he happens upon a little black bag that is a doctor's kind of toolkit, basically. And we get this kind of glimpse from the future that sends this bag back in time. And the doctor, Dr. Full, he has this little black bag, and he's sort of blackmailed by this young woman who lives in his kind of rundown neighborhood. And they end up creating like a practice together, you know, what is that called, a health practice or whatever, where they're doing surgeries on people and doing, you know, they're using the utensils, not utensils is not the right word, is it? The medical, yeah, utensils, I guess, that are within this little black bag to do essentially magic, but it's more like a scientific. The utensils kind of know what to do. They're very advanced in terms of medical equipment, and so the doctor sort of, you know, doctor and this young woman are profiting off of this, and the doctor decides that he wants to kind of get out while he's on top. He wants to donate this bag to like the College of Medical Professionals, and just, he has his money, he's good. But the woman gets very jealous of this and basically refuses. And the twist in this was awesome, and you should go read it. And I won't say anything more about it because I will spoil it, but I loved it, and I thought this story was somewhere between a sci-fi and a horror, honestly. The kind of edge and darkness that Kornbluth seems to write with sometimes is very fun and very exciting, and I think is kind of, it's lost in some of that early science fiction where this was published in 1950, so just like Ray Bradbury, there wasn't a lot of that material being published in my eyes that is this good at that time, that has that sort of horror nature. So if you like the weird fiction, if you like some of that stuff that has some of those horror elements, this is a great short story for you. And I have to note, and I'll link him down below, I'll link his video if I can find it, months and months ago at this point, Ira over at SF Words of Wonder, he had covered, I believe, the best of CM Kornbluth, and had talked specifically about this story being a standout. I want to say he did a wrap-up video last year at the end of the year talking about his favorite short stories of the year, and this was one of them. I think that's where I saw that from. So I remember earmarking that, and when I got to this series, I made sure to put this one in as CM Kornbluth's story, and it did not disappoint. Kornbluth, with the little black bag, also gets an 8 out of 10. So it is on par with Harrison Bergeron from Vonnegut. I thought this one was great. Moving on to our final short story, going up against CM Kornbluth, we had A. Merritt's, is it The Woman? I want to get this correct. The Woman of the Wood? The Women of the Wood. I got to correct my notes here. The Women of the Wood, published in 1926 and read here in my Fantasy Hall of Fame, compiled by Silverberg and Martin H. Greenberg. This has some awesome names. I'll turn it around there for you so you can see some of the great stuff that's in here. I'm going to definitely be reading more from this collection because it's got some awesome stuff, like I said. But anyway, this story was around the same length as The Little Black Bag, about 35 pages or so. So a little bit longer, a little more fleshed out than our first two stories, which was nice. The two short stories were kind of paired together, and then the two longer short stories were kind of paired together. Again, all of this was randomized, so that was just kind of stroke of luck. This is my first time reading A. Merritt. I am well aware that he was very prolific in terms of his reading and writing that he did. He had a ton of weird fiction, was kind of the forerunner and not the forerunner, but a forerunner of kind of that weird fiction that you know of Lovecraft, of Clark Ashton Smith, that kind of stuff. And so he doesn't get talked about as much as he probably should, as far as I'm concerned. And I'm really glad I finally made it around to him because his writing has that sort of vintage fantasy that is just not, it's not there anymore. You cannot find writing like this anymore. And I think that is like, it's not deliberate, but it's very noticeable. Like deliberate insinuates that there's a choice. Nobody has chosen in the literary world to do away with this kind of prose, with these kinds of prose, but Merritt has this flowery, poetic, lyrical way of telling his stories that is reminiscent of, like I just mentioned, Lovecraft, of Clark Ashton Smith. Less Lovecraft, but way more of that Andre Norton, Clark Ashton Smith. Just the early, like, very influenced by song and lyric and probably old English tales and things like that. I don't know. I have this I need to do more research into kind of the backstory and where he came from and what he was inspired by. But his stories have this very grand, kind of otherworldly feel about them. We follow this character named McKay, who is kind of he's a former soldier in France, and he's staying at an inn in this little kind of ring, this lake with closed, enclosed by a couple of mountains. And so there's this lake inn, and then there's this lodge across the lake, this small lake, where near it is this coppice of trees and of, like, just beautiful grass that kind of calls to him. McKay takes the boat over, and he's kind of met with these dryad spirits of the wood and is engulfed in their kind of beauty and magic. And then these three men that live in the lodge across sort of come with these hatchets and start hacking away at the trees. And the trees, being human almost, elf-like, sort of are showing, like, they show him that they're dying by these people, and they urge him to kill the men. It's a father and two sons who are of this lodge and who want to kill these trees. And we find out that these men, their family heritage comes from a long line of, like, being kind of pushed down by nobles and nobility, and the trees are sort of symbolic for that. And so they take their hatred out on these trees. The trees sort of take their hatred out on the men. And I think there's a car alarm going off out front. Oh, it stopped. Sorry. It's like 11:30 at night, so I want to make sure nothing's going on outside. Sidetrack. And there's hatred on both sides. So McKay sort of acts on the tree's behalf, and then gets kind of wrapped up in a pretty gnarly situation. And that's all I'll say. I don't want to spoil any more of that one either, because it was very good as well. I didn't quite enjoy this one as much as The Little Black Bag as far as the ending goes, but I really liked the immersion of this one. As I said, the prose are wonderful. It is lyrical. It's like, if you're watching this, you've probably read Tolkien. You've probably remember songs that Tom Bombadil was singing. You remember Tolkien describing these beautiful landscapes in Middle Earth, like Hobbiton, like Rivendell, where it has that kind of quality to it. Now, the writing itself is wonderful. The story is fun. Overall, it was just one of those stories you need to experience. So it gets a 7.5 out of me. Not quite up to the level of The Little Black Bag, but a really, really strong short story, and one that showed me that Merritt is, well, I was going to make a Merritt joke, but he deserves a lot of credit. It's too late for me to try to come up with some dad joke. But yeah, The Little Black Bag by C.M. Kornbluth gets an 8, and the Women of the Wood by A. Merritt gets a 7.5. So almost a mirror image of the other matchup. But yeah, that does it for our second matchup. And C.M. Kornbluth's going to take home the victory here. This is getting hard to write on like this, where I'm showing you on screen. I hope it's on screen. Bluth. Every time I see C.M. Kornbluth's name, I think of the Bluth family from Arrested Development, if any of you guys watch that show. I need to go to bed now. I think I'm toasted, guys. I'm very tired. And I just, yeah, that movie really knocked me out. The book I finished earlier this morning, and then I was like, I'll watch the movie. Not a good idea to do both of those in one day. It made me very sad today. Um, I digress. We are into the second half of Battle of the Shorts. We have tons of great matchups coming up, tons of great authors. I mean, Gene Wolfe, Michael Moorcock, William Gibson, Cordwainer Smith, Harlan Ellison, Philip K. Dick. The list goes on and on and on. Stay tuned. Every Saturday morning, 9 a.m. sharp Central Time, you can find a new episode here as long as I keep staying up with the reading, which, given that I'm shooting this video the night before, I push it to right up to the limit, and that's fine because we only have 13 weeks left, and that's a long time, but we'll make it through. We'll get the series done, and we will see who gets to take home the championship trophy of Battle of the Shorts. Anyway, I don't think I did a shout out this week. I'll shout out Andreea over at, I believe her channel is Infinite Text. I don't want to get that wrong, so let me look it up really quick. I do not want to, yes. Andreea over at Infinite Text gets the shout out this week. I'll link her down below in the description. She's been doing some great Pulp Fest coverage. She and a bunch of other awesome YouTubers just took a trip to Pulp Fest. Go watch all their cool stuff that they had from that. Hopefully I can join next year with that crew, and that would be a lot of fun. But in the meantime, go follow her and her great content, and stay tuned for another week of Battle of the Shorts. This has been week 13. I've been Dad Like Book, and I thank you as always for watching. I appreciate you guys, and I'll see you next week.